Welcome to the Knowledge Seeker channel. The channel is dedicated to exploring critical issues in the world. As such, this channel is not afraid to challenge existing facts, beliefs, and practices in order to contribute to the advancement of knowledge. This presentation is titled, Islam is merely a tool being used to Fulanize Nigeria. The strategy is taken from Uthman Dan Fodio's playbook. The purpose of this presentation is to achieve two goals. One, to show that the effort to Islamize Nigeria is actually an effort to Fulanize Nigeria. And two, to show that Islam is merely being used as a tool to gain popular support for the effort to Fulanize Nigeria. In order to accomplish the goals of the presentation, the following arguments are made. 1. It is argued here that Islam is merely being used as a tool to conquer, colonize, and Fulanize Nigeria. 2. The strategy comes directly from the playbook of Uthman Dan Fodio, who used Islam as a cover to conquer, colonize, and Fulanize the Hausas and other ethnic groups in northern Nigeria and Ilorin in southwestern Nigeria. 3. The Fulanis want to create a Fulani state in Nigeria so that their members elsewhere in Africa can come to settle in Nigeria. And 4. Since Islam is a major international religion, it is being used to arouse Nigerian Muslims to support the effort the way the Hausas were made to support the overthrowing of their indigenous states. This is the map of Nigeria. As you can see, the northern region of Nigeria is the Islamized zone of the country, and that zone is the Sokoto Caliphate, which is like an Islamic state within Nigeria. It was created by Uthman Dan Fodio, a major Fulani teacher or scholar and probably a religious leader. This is Uthman Dan Fodio, the leader of the revolution that established the Sokoto Caliphate in northern Nigeria and some parts of southwestern Nigeria. Now, let's look at the Sokoto Caliphate is actually a Fulani state that is clothed in Islam. The fact that the Sokoto Caliphate, which Uthman Dan Fodio established, is actually a Fulani state is indisputable. 1. He used Islam as a strategy to attract Hausa and other Muslims to increase his ability to conquer the traditional states. 2. The empire is a Fulani state because only descendants of Uthman Dan Fodio can serve as a sultan in the Sokoto Caliphate. Even Fulanis who do not belong to the Torodbe clan cannot serve as a sultan. This is why no Hausa, Kanuri, Igbira, Junkun, Nupe, and Yoruba Muslim has ever served as a sultan. 3. The discrimination of other Muslims clearly shows that, indeed, the Islamic Revolution was actually a Fulani revolution. Hence, only the Fulanis can serve as a sultan. And 4. Likewise, only Fulanis serve as emirs because the Fulanis conducted the revolution. They merely used Islam as a cover to achieve the goal. Please examine the numbers below to show that the Sokoto Caliphate is purely a Fulani affair. Now, let's look at the statistical breakdown of Muslims by ethnicity in Nigeria. These are only few of the Muslims, the few ethnic groups among the Muslims in Nigeria. 1. Fulani has about 95 to 99% Muslim population. The Gbaji is about 30% Muslims. Among the Hausas, about 90 to 95% are Muslims. Among the Gbira, about 70 to 75% are Muslims. The Junkun, this is very tricky. Among the Junkun, the Wapan sub-ethnic group has about 95% Muslims. Note, the Junkun population is spread into subgroups with many having Christian majority. So most of the Junkun people are Christians, except one or two subgroups like the Wapan, which is about 90 to 95% Muslims. Kanuri is made of about 98 to 99% Muslims. Yoruba has about 50 to 55% Muslims. Now, let's look at the breakdown of the ethnicities of those who have served as sultans of Sokoto in northern Nigeria. This is to prove that the Sokoto Caliphate is actually a Fulani state. Let's look at the numbers. 1. Fulani, about 19 or 20 of the sultans that have served in the Sokoto Caliphate are from the Torodbe clan, which is directly associated with Osman Dan Fodio since 1804. So almost all the sultans come from Osman Dan Fodio's clan. 2. Gbagi, none. Hausa, none. Igbira, none. Junkun, none. Kanuri, none. Nupe, none. Yoruba, none. This means that no other Muslim from these other ethnic groups has ever served as a sultan in the Sokoto Caliphate, meaning that the Sokoto Caliphate is purely a Fulani state, although they use Islam to cover up the Fulanization. The breakdown of the ethnicities of those who have served as emirs in the Sokoto Caliphate. So here we are looking at how many emirs from other ethnic groups have served as regional leaders of the Sokoto Caliphate. 1. Fulani. Most emirs are Fulanis. The Gbaji, none. Hausa, maybe Kebbi and Yori had nominal Hausa-led emirates under the supervision of the Fulani-dominated Sokoto Caliphate. Maybe. Igbira, none. Junkun, none. Kanuri, none. Nupe, none. Yoruba, none. So just like at the sultanate level, no other Muslim from other ethnic group has served as a sultan. Likewise, at the emirate level, no other Muslim from other ethnic groups have served as emirs in the Sokoto Caliphate. Again, it means that the Sokoto Caliphate is purely a Fulani state. They are again using Islam as a cover. Now, let's look at the implications of the Fulanization of the Sokoto Caliphate. 1. Othman Danfodio, the great Fulani leader who initiated an Islamic revolution to overthrow the traditional African states in 1804, ended up turning the Sokoto Caliphate into a family and tribal state. It is purely a Fulani state. 2. Hence, all the sultans of Sokoto are descendants of Othman Danfodio, who originated from the Torodbe clan of the Fulani nation. 3. All the emirs have been Fulanis, except in few instances where Hausa leaders were allowed to rule under the supervision of the Fulani. 4. In particular, no Hausa has served as the emir of Kano. See, Kano is a major city in Hausa land, and yet no Hausa has ever served as an emir in their most important city. 5. All those Fulanis that have served as the emir of Kano are members of the Sulu Bawa or Sulu Banko clan. 6. This means that even though the Sokoto Caliphate is regarded as an Islamic state, in reality it is a Fulani state. 7. Basically, the Fulanis use Islam to galvanize the Hausas and members of other ethnic groups, including some Yorubas, to join them in overthrowing the traditional African states, then turn the state into a Fulani empire. Thus, Islam was merely used to conquer and colonize the Hausas and other northern ethnic groups and Ilorin in Nigeria. 8. Therefore, the Sokoto Caliphate could be regarded as a monarchy in which the members of the Torodbe clan holds power dynastically. And I repeat, 8. Therefore, the Sokoto Caliphate could be regarded as a monarchy in which the members of the Torodbe clan holds power dynastically. 9. This is why other Muslims in Nigeria are merely colonized followers of the Torodbe dynasty. And I repeat, 9. This is why other Muslims in Nigeria are merely colonized followers of the Torodbe dynasty in the Sokoto Caliphate. Now, let's look at the attempt to Islamize Nigeria as an effort to conquer and Fulanize Nigeria today. A critical analysis of the chaotic Nigerian political situation shows clearly that the so-called effort to introduce Sharia and Islamize Nigeria by the Islamic North is actually an effort by the Fulani nationality to conquer and colonize Nigeria. Although Islam is used as the justification. In reality, it is a tribal effort of the Fulani to conquer and Fulanize the country so that the Fulanis throughout the West African region can have a specific country to show as their own. These are some of the jihadists that are fighting today to supposedly Islamize Nigeria. But what they are actually doing is an effort to create an Islamic state throughout Nigeria. Fulani armed herders. These are some of the foot soldiers that are going all over the country, kidnapping, killing, and destroying. Now, let's look at the evidence to support the view that Islam is being used to Fulanize Nigeria. In this section, specific statements, declarations, and actions intended to conquer, colonize, and Fulanize Nigeria are shown. The evidence will show that the Fulanis are very smart in using Islam to spread their political wings in Nigeria. They are aware that other Muslims in Nigeria will not support their effort if their plan is shown as a tribal one. On the other hand, if they say that they want to spread Sharia, other Muslims, including some Hausa, Kanuri, Shuarab, Igbira, Nupe, and Yoruba Muslims are likely to support them. That is why they are using Islam as a cover. This is Sir Ahmadu Bello, a grandson of Othman Dan Fodio and the former premier of northern Nigeria, a very prominent Fulani son. 1. Sir Ahmadu Bello's tribalistic statement to conquer the rest of Nigeria. If the Fulanis were actually interested in spreading Islam and not Fulani colonization of Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello would not have said, and I quote, "The new nation called Nigeria should be an estate of our great-grandfather Othman Dan Fodio. We must ruthlessly prevent a change of power. We must use the minorities in the north as willing tools and the south as a conquered territory and never allow them to rule over us and never allow them to have control over their future." And I unquote. By this statement, Sir Ahmadu Bello called for Nigeria to be turned into a Fulani state and not necessarily an Islamic state. So let's break down his quotation into bits. His statement, and I quote, "The new nation called Nigeria should be an estate of our great-grandfather Othman Dan Fodio," and I unquote, calls for a creation of a nation that is based on the wish of his grandfather, Othman Dan Fodio. He made this statement with total disdain for the non-Fulani Muslims whom his grandfather conquered and colonized. When he said, and I quote, "We must use the minorities in the north as willing tools," and I unquote, he meant that other northern Muslims do not matter and should be exploited to the advantage of the Fulanis. Please reread this and Pay attention to the statement. When he said, and I quote, "And the South has a conquered territory and never allowed them to rule over us and never allowed them to have control over their future," and I will quote, he implied that the Fulanis must treat southern Nigeria as a conquered territory and the Southerners should not be allowed to rule Nigeria. This is why whenever a southern Nigerian rules the country, the Fulanis create chaos in order to remove the individual from power. There are many examples to cite from to show the pattern. A. When it was time for Dr. Alex Ekwueme to serve as the presidential flag bearer of the National Party of Nigeria in 1983, the Fulanis opposed the idea and President Shehu Shagari had to contest the presidential position again instead of Dr. Ekwueme. B. When Chief MKO Abiola, a Southerner, won the presidential election of June 12, 1993, the Islamic North, led by the Fulanis, ordered General Ibrahim Babangida to annul the election so that a Southerner does not become the president. And the election was annulled. C. When General Olusegun Obasanjo, a Southerner, became the president of Nigeria in May 1999, the Fulanis pushed for the imposition of the Sharia in 12 states as a means to weaken Obasanjo's presidency. D. When President Umaru Yar'Adua was incapacitated, the Islamic North, led by the Fulanis, opposed installing Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, a Southerner, as the acting president. It was only through the pressure mounted by Nigerians that finally enabled the leadership of the Islamic North to allow Dr. Jonathan to become the acting president of Nigeria. E. When Dr. Jonathan wanted to run for re-election in 2011, the political elites in the Islamic North, led by the Fulanis, openly threatened to make the country ungovernable. F. To ensure that Dr. Jonathan is removed as the president of Nigeria, some northern governors even plotted with foreign powers to ensure that Dr. Jonathan did not win the 2015 presidential election. They succeeded, hence their messiah, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, became president on May 29, 2015. G. Chief Bola Ahmed Tinubu from the South is the president of Nigeria today, and the political leadership of the North, led by the Fulanis, is restless. The northern political elites want to make sure President Tinubu does not remain in power. H. Due to the command issued by Sir Ahmadu Bello, who said, and I quote, "And the South as a conquered territory and never allow them to rule over us and never allow them to have control over their future," and I unquote. The oil and gas in the Niger Delta South is totally nationalized to the benefit of the North, while solid minerals which are found in the North and elsewhere are not nationalized. This means that the leaders of the Islamic North are following the script written by Sir Ahmadu Bello to treat the South as a conquered territory. Hence, the Niger Delta South people are not allowed to control their oil and gas, while solid minerals are not nationalized. So the plan, or what is going on today regarding the oil wealth, is basically the plan that Samadu Bello put in place to never allow the South to control their future. As can be seen, the political and religious elites of the Islamic North, led by the Fulanese, are carrying out the order of Sir Ahmadu Bello, who said, and I repeat the quotation, I quote, "We must ruthlessly prevent a change of power. We must use the minorities in the North as willing tools and the South as a conquered territory, and never allow them to rule over us, and never allow them to have control over their future." And I unquote. 2. Another evidence to show that Islam is merely being used to conquer and Fulanize Nigeria is that Professor Umar Labdo Muhammad did not hesitate to say in 2018 that the Fulanese conquered the area now known as Benue, Plateau, Taraba, and other states, when he allegedly said, and I quote, "Benue state belongs to the Fulani by right of conquest. This is because half of the state is part of the Bauchi Emirate, and the other half is part of the Adamawa Emirate. Benue is, therefore, part and parcel of the Sokoto Caliphate," and I unquote. Most Nigerians fail to realize that Fulani herders have repeatedly invaded, killed people, destroyed communities, and occupied some communities in Benue, Plateau, Taraba, and Adamawa states because they believe that these states belongs to them by right of conquest, as Professor Muhammad claimed. So please, Nigerians, watch the situation very critically. You will see that when Fulani leaders made certain statements, the statements always coincide with the actions on the ground. And this is why you see the herders continue to attack Benue and Plateau states repeatedly because they believe they conquer it and it belongs to them. Due to the insistence on the right of conquest, the herders believe that the indigents of Benue, Plateau, and Taraba must give way to allow the Fulanis to settle in the conquered territories. Professor Muhammad's statement confirms the view that the Ottoman Danfodio's revolution was more of a Fulani conquest and colonization rather than an Islamic conquest, even though Islam was used as a strategy for the conquest. 3. Nigeria is a free land for all Fulanis to come and settle. Another clear evidence to show that the terror that is being spread is to Fulanize and not necessarily to Islamize Nigeria was an alleged statement made by former Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State to indicate that the Fulanis own Nigeria. He allegedly said openly that Fulanis in other parts of Africa can move freely to Nigeria and settle, as if the indigenous ethnic groups who own the land do not matter. So he never cared about the other ethnic groups who were indigenous to Nigeria. All what he cared about was for other Fulanis to move to Nigeria and settle. He has never apologized for making that statement. This is former Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State who made the statement, or who allegedly made the statement, that other Fulanis can move into Nigeria and settle. 4. President Muhammadu Buhari's open visa policy. President Muhammadu Buhari immigration policies also clearly showed a desire to bring the Fulanis from other parts of Africa to Nigeria. As a result, he initiated an open visa policy based on the issuance of visa on arrival in Nigeria. The policy was intended, supposedly, to increase inter-African integration and commerce. Many Nigerians allege that he adopted the policy to encourage Fulanis to move to Nigeria. This allowed many Fulanis from Central African Republic, Chad, Niger, and Senegal to move to Nigeria. This is the late President Muhammadu Buhari, the president who encouraged other Fulanis to move to Nigeria. Now, in conclusion, instead of saying conclusion, I rather use suggestion. So the title here is Suggestion. The non-Fulani Muslims of Nigeria, do not fall for the same trick again. As indicated in the above discussion, it is clear that those who want to supposedly Islamize Nigeria are actually attempting to Fulanize the country. Therefore, the Busas, Hausas, Igbiras, Kanuris, Nupes, Shua Arabs, Yorubas, and so forth do not fall for the trick that was used to conquer you during the Uthman Dan Fodio's revolution in 1804. The narrative then was that the effort was to establish an Islamic state. It was this narrative that compelled many of you to join the Fulani jihadists to overthrow your indigenous states. As soon as the revolution succeeded, the Islamic State was Fulanized. This is why only a Fulani from the clan associated with Uthman Dan Fodio can become a sultan, not a Busa, not Hausa, not Igbira, not Kanuri, not Nupe, not Shua Arab, or a Yoruba Muslim can become one. Likewise, most of the emirs in the Caliphate are Fulanese. Thus, it does not matter whether you are a Muslim or not. You cannot be a sultan or an emir, only the Fulanese can be. This means that the Sokoto Caliphate is actually a Fulani state. Thus, like the early 19th century, the Fulanis are using the same strategy to compel other Nigerian Muslims to join the effort to supposedly Islamize Nigeria. If you join the Fulanis to engage in such a jihad, you will end up being recolonized again. Why? Because if they succeed, they will turn around to say Nigeria is a Fulani state. Hence, only Fulanis can exercise political and religious authority. If you, the Bosa, Hausa, Igbira, Kanuri, Nupe, Shu Arabs, Yoruba, and so forth join the jihad to supposedly Islamize Nigeria, you will end up becoming the colonial subjects of the Fulani. This is not an exaggeration. For instance, Ilorin is a Yoruba territory, yet it is a Fulani that exercise political and religious authority, and no Yoruba has ever been allowed to serve as an emir. Kano is a Hausa territory, yet no Hausa has served as an emir. Daura is a Hausa territory, just like Sokoto, but only Fulani serve as emirs. That is a clear indication of Fulani conquest and colonization. There is also the possibility that a clash might take place between the Kanuri dominated Boko Haram and the Fulanize jihadist groups like the Armed Horsemen, Bandits, Ansaru, and Lakurawa. Again, it is necessary to review the history of what happened in 1804 to avoid falling into the same trap. It is a common saying that once bitten, twice shy. The Arab Muslims are busy developing and modernizing their countries, while northern Nigerian Muslim elites are busy destroying the country instead of working to turn Nigeria into an advanced industrial economic power in the world. In this, it is very, very sad what the Fulanis have been doing to Nigeria. Do not allow yourself to be beaten twice in the name of fighting for Islam when the actual plan is to establish a Fulani Republic of Nigeria. Why fight for a cause in which you will be pushed aside when the dream is achieved? Thank you very much for listening to this presentation. Please subscribe to the channel. There are many other interesting presentations under the Knowledge Seeker channel. Again, thank you very, very much. Do not fail to subscribe.